a year or so ago.
You certainly must
I
have
have a hard
remembered
time
that
remembering
conversation.
conversations from back then.
Yeah, it was a while ago. I think it was around the time I was researching. We were doing financial tools or researching.
Urania, that's a beautiful view behind you. Are
Thank
you
you. I picked that picture myself.
are you in a boat or something? You're in a boat or what?
No, I'm shooing. I'm
That's fantastic.
shoot.
She can hook you up, Bob. She can hook you up.
She's
I mean,
fantastic.
Zoom will put any view
That
you want.
picture. You can upload any picture you want for behind you.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Someday we'll get on the phone and I'll walk you through it.
That's great. Can I get the 55 Brooklyn Dodgers on there?
If you have to save the picture of the 55 Brooklyn Dodgers to your computer.
All right.
Then when you go do the background,
That's them.
video background,
Yeah.
you just go into your PC files and pull it up. That's it. You know?
Terrific.
Are you eating fries and not sharing any, Bob?
I'm eating shrimp.
I made shrimp. I made pie shrimp fried rice tonight, earlier today.
You're eating well.
Hi, Susan.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, David.
Hi.
Hi, Dave Menzies.
Hi, Kurt.
How you doing?
Long time.
I'm writing notes.
I'm writing notes.
More and
Just
more.
writing out other people's names that are here today. Oh, hey, there's Ed Sanders. Hi, Edward.
Oh, there's Terry and Mark.
Oh, hey, Terry and Mark.
Hey.
Hey, we have quite the crew here today.
How about that? Hi, Laura. How you feeling, Laura?
Yeah, you know, good today. Back to normal. For those that don't know, I had COVID, a Pfizer COVID vaccine #2, which is the worst of the two, on Friday. So Saturday was what I would call a horizontal day. But anyway, fever came, fever went. Back in business today.
Nice.
So, and nice to have it behind me. Very, very happy to.
Nice. And the CDC says you can socialize with others who have been similarly protected without your mask on.
Yes, and I guess it takes 2 weeks, I think.
Yes, you have to wait a bit.
But Easter
Susan, you can finally get out of the house. What has it been, about 6 months now?
A year.
At least.
Yeah, there you go.
Take the barbed wire off the front of the driveway.
So Easter's looking good. I'm hopeful for some family time at Easter. So hey, it's a good.
Yeah, I think Passover is coming too here.
Good, yay!
I got some interesting online stuff going on. I sort of shared.
Well, so there. I don't know how big the list of advantages is to being eligible, the age old enough to be eligible, but it's nice to have that done. And my stepdaughter is a teacher, so she was on the list. So
that's good.
Things are looking good. So okay. So we have a number of let me just make my and I'm my own scribe here. So let me just make my notes here of, I know from the Zoning Revision Committee we have Dave Menzies, we have Ed Sanders, we have and things just moved around a bit. We have Connor. And so I'm pretty sure we're going to have Jeff joining because he has a topic he wanted to cover, and of course me. And then from housing, well, and also we have a guest, Ken Panza, I see, who's neither on zoning revision nor on housing, but always a help to have on the call. So
I'm going to ask you about the status of the zoning law changes for the water protection.
Yeah, well, the quick answer is I was able to get the telecommunications law off my desk and out, and I was doing that first. And so I have not yet got your law. That is the next thing on my to-do list.
Well, that's already been approved by your committee.
I understand that, but what I need to do is it's in a PDF, and Bill McKenna has asked me to make things in the fill. He has a fill law that came out. He said make it in the same format as the fill law. So it's in a PDF. I'm just going to convert it to a Word document, and I'm going to make sure that it matches the formatting. So that's all. I'm not going to change any words. I'm just going to check the formatting. So that's the piece that I need to do, and I'll be doing that. So, so yes, you are correct, and is the next thing on my personal to-do list.
So what do you think the schedule is for that?
The schedule for me getting it to Bill McKenna, or the schedule for it being approved?
The schedule to get it to Bill McKenna.
Well, I hope tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
My goal is tomorrow. It is the next thing on my list, the very next thing on my list. So, so tomorrow. So you heard it here first. Tomorrow. And if you want, I can let you know when it goes for me to, I'll copy you on it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Copy Ken when send. Okay. But we're talking about housing today, Ken. You're more than welcome to hang out for the housing discussion.
Well, I will.
Yeah. Yay. Okay. And I see Michael is on. Michael is part of our housing group. So Michael's here. So from housing, I see we have Kirk. I see we have Susan. We have Deborah. We have Urana.
And Bob.
What's that?
And Bob.
And
Young.
Bob. Well, we've also got Suzanne. We have a Suzanne here.
Oh, that's Bob.
Close enough.
Oh, okay. So we have Bob, and then we have Terry Funk Antman and a friend who's not on housing, but an interested party, I think.
Terry
Okay.
and Mark.
Excuse me, Terry?
Terry and Mark Antman.
Perfect.
Okay.
Ah, yes, Terry and Mark. And I should have known that. Sorry about that. And let me just make sure I've got everybody that's here. We got David, we have Bob. Whoops. We have Bob, we have Kirk, Deborah, Susan, Ken, Terry, Ed, Michael, and Connor. And I again, I do expect Jeff, but we'll see. So what I will share, what we're gonna do, we'll do housing stuff first. I seem to have just knocked off my thing here. I'm gonna share my screen.
Mike Castiglione, that's who it is.
Yes, that is Mike Castiglione. Yes, yes. So I'm sharing my screen, and I'm going to pull up the agenda. And so the topics that we want to do together with housing will, in a perfect world, we'd adopt the agenda first, but we're just going to go ahead and jump into housing, and then we'll do our admin stuff after that. So my thoughts, I don't know if you can read the little bitty writing, but I know Connor and I went to the meeting 2 weeks ago and it was a wonderful meeting that Kirk and Susan and the people from Ulster County talked at about housing. So we can do a quick summary of that. And I think Connor, actually of my committee, I'm not even sure, well, I shouldn't call it my committee, but of our zoning revision committee. Connor, I think you were at that 2 weeks ago, correct? Oh, well, Connor's not
Yes,
talking.
I was. Can you hear me okay? I'm having pretty bad connection.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, so you were there, and I don't know whether Ed or David or Michael were able to attend that, but I attended.
I did. I watched it.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I attended it.
Great. Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry. Who else? I heard David say he attended it. Connor. Michael, was that you?
Yeah, I attended it. You called and asked me to do it, so I did.
Wow.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, it's always nice to have somebody that helps out. So thank you. And Ed, I don't know whether you had a chance, Ed, to.
I didn't. I said I couldn't.
Right, there you go. Okay, and that's fine. We have a majority that has, so that's healthy. So I won't repeat what got covered. It was a great meeting, though. So today I know that Kirk and Susan had indicated that they wanted to talk about two things in particular: a building permit moratorium that I have a copy of here that I'll share on my screen, and then since I have mentioned to people. And as we know in the zoning revision committee, and so does Susan and Kirk, that we have a couple of things that we have off our plate as a zoning revision committee. And the hot thing to talk about next is housing. So this is a good time for us to talk about how we want to, and this is the item right here, is what do we want to do next? We should talk about how we're going to determine zoning law updates that are recommended. And I know the Housing Committee has done a lot of work on knowing what's needed and then drafting those law updates, which my latest understanding from the Housing Committee is you're looking for the Zoning Revision Committee to actually draft the updates, but we do need to know what's recommended, and then we want to have expectations from both committees and next steps. So we'll get to that. I guess we'll do the moratorium first. But as far as our next steps for working together to properly update the zoning law to meet current housing needs, with the awareness that the Housing Committee has been doing a lot of great work in investigating the needs, I do believe that we need to understand the needs. We can't just go draft zoning law changes for housing. We first do need to understand the needs, and we don't want to be presumptuous because Housing Committee has been doing homework for a year on what the needs are. So my vision is that we're going to have some information from the Housing Committee about what the needs are, and the Zoning Revision Committee, again, my understanding is you'd like us to actually update the law, which is fine. But it's good for us to understand who's doing what, when, and how we get to where we need to be. But besides that, one of the reasons why I thought Jeff Collins would be here is because he asked me to add to the agenda a document he shared about floating zones. And I know floating zone is something that Kirk has already shared with me that the Housing Committee has been considering. So we have a lot going on. I mean, housing is huge. And I think this is a wonderful time to be diving into it because the Housing Committee has been working for a year on putting a lot of thought into things, doing investigations, doing some analysis, maybe ready to say, hey, we'd really like to recommend this, and this get added to the zoning law. And our committee is now saying, hey, this is our top priority thing to work on right now, because we had our two top priority things to work on are off the plate. And the water thing, as Ken points out, is really, it's not really out of our committee until I send it to Bill McKenna, but that's coming soon. So anyway, and the floating zone is something that the Housing Committee may want to talk to us about. So one of the things I did do, and this is the agenda document is something that I put that I sent to the Zoning Revision Committee, but I also included there a link to and I've got it too, the zoning map, because of course it's going to be very helpful as we say housing. And one of the things I've noted down here is in the comp plan does say we want to keep wide open spaces, but then it also says we want affordable housing, which probably is going to include new building. So it'll be a tricky thing to say, where do we put the affordable housing so that we keep wide open spaces? We keep the town of Woodstock residents who all said they want wide open spaces. Where do we put the affordable housing so people in Woodstock still have the feel of the wide open spaces, but let's get this affordable housing? So lots to think about here. And that being said, well, Kirk or Susan, I was going to go next into the building permit moratorium, and then we'll talk more about our next steps about how we're working together. Anything Kirk or Susan wanted to say before we look at your moratorium letter that you sent?
Yeah, I think we're good. I'm good. I'd like to just go ahead and move forward.
Oh, okay. So, and the big question is, can I find it quickly? I may have to look for a couple of things here. Oh, no, where did it go? Where did it go? I may have to bring it up again. Because I thought that it was, there you go. I thought I had it up, but I can easily bring it up. So I don't know if you can all read that. I'll bring it. There we go. There's the whole thing. So Kirk or Susan, why don't you, and because you just sent this to me today and I was doing the agenda, I just sent it out to the Zoning Revision Committee like 10 minutes ago. So they didn't really get a chance to read it yet. They can read it as I have it on my screen, but you guys, one or both of you can talk to it.
Well, should we read it or? Save everybody the trouble of reading it, or
Well, would somebody like
speak
to?
it while people are reading? So.
What was that, Susan?
I said, no, I don't want to speak to it while people are trying to
Okay.
read
So,
it.
so can everybody, are the letters big enough for everybody to read this on my screen, or should somebody read it?
No, it's big enough.
Not big enough? Okay.
They are
I'm
big
just-
enough.
They are big enough. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming everybody's reading it. I'll give people a couple minutes to read it. If you can't read it, tell me and I'll read it to you, but I'll assume you can all read it. Okay. So this letter, I see it's dated March 9th. So you're planning to send it tomorrow.
Well, that's the date of the
Meeting.
town board meeting. That's why.
Uh,
it's dated that day.
Okay. So you're planning to send it tomorrow. Are you planning to present it at the town board meeting, or are you planning to send it in an email before the meeting?
All the town board members will receive this letter prior to the meeting, so they have an opportunity to be familiar with it. And then we are slotted to either in the publicly heard period of time or at a designated time by Bill McKenna to actually present this letter. We don't know which at this point, but we will be reading it for the public to hear the letter. And the town board members will each have it. And then we'll be able to discuss what we believe are the next steps, which is stated in this letter.
Okay. So what I can share is, as far as STRs, of course, we have some what we call owner occupied, and we have some non-owner occupied. And the non-owner occupied cap is reached. So we're not allowing any additional non-owner occupied this year because the cap for non-owner occupied is reached, just to share that. And then we could get into, well, how is the enforcement going? We can get into that topic. But I did want to share that the non-owner occupied cap has been reached for short-term rentals. But not to say this isn't still an issue. And then the question of, can people be snapping up properties because they want to put hotel kinds of, and hotels are approved in some zones in Woodstock. So yeah, it's definitely, and I will say I share the concern, because I would love to see if there are well, first of all, if there are open spaces, we'd like to keep, we'd like to figure out, I think between the Housing Committee and the Zoning Revision Committee, I think we'd like to figure out where do we want to keep the open spaces. And as we figure out where to keep the open spaces, we can maybe do floating zones or something to preserve the open spaces, and then lay out, okay, so what are the areas? I think the thought might be, if we're going to have affordable housing, maybe having it in someplace like the Hamlet, which is already densely populated, maybe making that a little more densely populated is okay for affordable housing. But I agree with the thought that not okay for these people who are investment oriented and not community oriented. It's not what I would want, to have them snapping up all these properties just to put more hotels and more transient people that aren't going to be part of our community. So I certainly understand and agree with that concern. And then how we, what's the legal way to address that is the issue. And your specific question is, would the Zoning Revision Committee want to write a similar letter? I think that's, Kirk, what you had indicated to me is perhaps the Zoning Revision Committee wants to write a similar letter with urging a similar thing.
Well, I'm not asking the Zoning Revisions Committee to do anything. We are here to inform the zoning revisions committee what we are doing. This is more of an FYI, if you will. This is our letter to the town board. And it would be up to the zoning revisions committee to determine their own actions. And we're not asking them to do anything. So please be clear about that.
Okay.
I think that the way affordable housing has been expressed so far this evening is misaligned with how the housing committee is viewing affordable housing. And I want to make that clear here and now, that please don't bring your own, well, you can do what you like, but as a housing committee, we've gone to great measures to ensure that the housing we need fits with our community and fits with the character of our community. And so it also states in the comprehensive plan that development of housing or building of housing will be small projects peppered throughout the town. We're not talking about tucking something away in a corner of our town somewhere. That's not what we're talking about in the housing committee. So I just really want to make sure that what's being expressed here, that maybe there's a better understanding of what the housing committee believes to be our mission, so that when the zoning revisions committee can think about the law on which you're responsible for writing, you can hold that in your minds.
Well, and that's exactly what we need, right? And even though I share some of my opinions about, my thoughts, right? We definitely need.
Interrupted, but that's okay.
So, I'm sorry.
I was just, there's like, I'm just expressing and responding to you. So, and there's no need to think otherwise, that I'm just expressing myself here as a member of the housing committee. And so this particular topic of the moratorium is in reaction to most recent activities of acquisitions of properties by LLCs and people who may be viewing our town as a commodity rather than as a community. It's stated in the letter.
Right.
So that's the reason why we feel compelled as a committee. And all the committee members have approved this letter, and so now it's official. We'll be submitting this letter to the town board tomorrow. And I asked, if for those of you who do not yet have it, either ask me for it and I will send it to you, or ask Laura for it because she has it. So you have it as a reference. But we are here simply to share with you from one committee to another what our intentions are tomorrow. And then we would like to have the opportunity to continue to, in our discussion this evening, to share a little bit more and learn from you all what the expectations are, if you will, of how our committees can cooperate and collaborate together. So those are the two main points, from my perspective, of why we're here this evening together as guests. Everybody in the housing committee, we all view this as we are guests and here to talk about those two things. And
okay, well, I guess my thought about the moratorium letter is so and I appreciate that. So you all as the housing committee have been delving into the housing needs, and as you say, I may have jumped to some conclusions or whatever, and I'm certainly happy to be reeled back in, because the whole, as I said before, it's good for the zoning revision committee to know what the housing committee recommendations are for what parts of the zoning law, what zoning is needed. And then we as the zoning revision committee can be crawling through the law and figuring out how to make those changes. But you've been doing the homework to have an idea, just like you explained a minute ago, that the housing committee's vision is small housing projects kind of across the town in terms of how to get affordable housing. Well, that's great. I mean, you've done the homework. I respect the fact that the housing committee's done the homework. So we do need to know which directions you're looking to go in, so that we can be making sure we're understanding those and then making the right changes. So,
One thing we,
oh, okay, I'll go ahead. So I heard, so Urana has her hand up, so I'll let Urana go next. Although Jeff had his hand up earlier, and I think I heard somebody else try to talk, but Urana, your hand was up now, so go ahead.
I wanted to clarify something quickly to, I was listening to what you were saying, Laura, and I wrote some notes. And I just want to clarify, for those who maybe didn't see Monday, February 26th event that we presented, that was in collab. So I want to speak to your open spaces. So that's actually Woodstock Land Conservancy's and Woodstock Transitions, their format. They invited us because they agree with us. We agreed together that housing is an environmental issue. And so that was an example of us collaborating together as two different issues that it's sort of like a Venn diagram that cross over. And so to answer your concern and what does say in the comprehensive plan about open spaces, but in housing, this is something that we're working together. And also the Ulster County Deputy Executive Evelyn Wright had said that she had agreed and thought and was happy to see that this was happening. So we definitely plan on working in a collaborative way. Let's not let that stop our conversation today.
Oh, right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, but as a member of the Comprehensive Plan Committee, I know that I will want to make sure that we are still keeping. When the people of Woodstock said very strongly on that survey for the comprehensive plan that open spaces are important, I just want to make sure that the people of Woodstock are happy with, as best we can make it, have the people of Woodstock happy, that they feel like they're still getting the beauty of the open spaces that's so important to them.
Right.
And I love.
Yeah, we're not talking about full-on sprawling suburbs. That's not what we're talking about.
Right. Right, yeah. Perfect. And the fact that you're working with the Land Conservancy and Woodstock Transition is a perfect collaboration because they probably have a really good understanding of what the people of Woodstock want with those open spaces. So that's a nice collaboration. I see Jeff's got his hand up.
Well, Ed also.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I have my hand up for first. I'd like to speak at some point here. I don't, if that's okay, Laura. I think we should move on past the letter. I think the letter makes sense. I think the letter is putting a slowdown on what needs to be slowed down. And I think we should support that fully and then get back and figure out how we then fix things so this doesn't continue to be a problem. So moving past the letter, which hopefully we can do that, I think we need to talk about what it is that we can do and how we can do it to move forward to solve the problems that are coming into place. I sent a document to you this afternoon, Laura.
It's on the agenda. It is on the agenda, Jeff.
Outlining the idea of floating zones. I'd like to be able to get to actually talking about that. So to me, unless there's an objection to this letter, I think we should say thank you very much to the Housing Committee for doing it and for calling for a moratorium so we can get our act together about what the zoning needs to be. And that's where I stand on this.
Okay. And Jeff, I do have your zoning on the agenda. I know you weren't here right at the beginning, but when I reviewed the housing agenda topics, I did send it to everybody on the committee, but it was only like 10 minutes before the meeting because it just kind of came in.
Yeah.
So everybody actually does have it, and everybody does have the letter for this moratorium because I sent that, but it was only like 10 minutes before the meeting. So with that, Ed, I know you wanted to speak.
Well, the Zoning Revision Committee has had preliminary discussions about working on the planned residential development section of our zoning law to make it more usable for affordable housing. So we've had a preliminary discussion of that. But secondly, this letter calls for a land use moratorium. And I'm sure the town board will accept it with approval, but it's a very general call. And we're entering the prime spring and summer house repair season. And so you know, we have to be careful. We don't I've already had someone complain to me about this land use moratorium when I told them about it, because they are planning to they want a building permit to fix up a room in their house in downtown Woodstock and make it more livable. So we have to be careful about, I looked up on in the Department of State, New York Department of State, on land use moratoriums, and the town just has to make it much more specific and describe what things they want to prevent from happening, like changing land use from, say, a funeral home to a motel or something like that. So it just needs to be more specific, but I think it's an admirable letter. I would support it, but the town board is never going to pass an unspecific moratorium. I helped write the 1989. We had a moratorium when we wrote the zoning law in 1989, and I helped write it, and it's quite complicated to write. It's not, we had a real good lawyer.
I believe intention is to not stop development, to not stop building projects that are improving things. It's to stop new development. And I believe that it's up to the town attorney to come up with that language, not for the housing committee or the zoning review committee. The request is to have the moratorium and have it be rational so people can do projects like fix their house up and not do projects like make a funeral home into a condo complex. So I think that's part of it, and I think that's left up to the attorneys, not up to us lay people to come up with a language for that.
Yeah, okay, and Deborah's had her hand up. So
Yeah,
Deborah,
I just want to say, because I had a hand in writing this, and the idea was to give a general opinion about the need for this pause, but not to take on ourselves writing the specifics, recognizing that normal housing, repairs, roofs, other things that people will be doing in the town would certainly not fall under a moratorium. And that is something that, so that needs to be really clear. This is not a general stop, full stop. It's really, and that does need to be crafted by somebody who has the legal expertise to do that if the town wants to consider it.
And in paragraph 2, it says the town to engage a land use attorney for the specific purposes of drafting the moratorium. So we have, part of it is directly request the attorney.
yeah. So one question I know, because Ed and I did talk earlier this afternoon, and Ed brought up a really good point, which is when you do a moratorium, you normally have a fixed time limit. Is it going to be 6 months or a year? I know the wording says until zoning laws are updated, but that's a little open-ended because we don't know how many months that's going to be. Kirk, go ahead.
Yeah, according to the research that we've done, and Deborah led this research on the state level, the typical moratoriums are, judges will not support anything beyond 9 months, typically. So we're talking about 6 to 9 months on the outside, less than that, because some moratoriums will last 3 to 6 months. So there is time limit to it, to the point that you're bringing up. So, and there always is a point to it. It's not forever. So
Right.
This is essentially a slow down mechanism, a legal method for slowing down the momentums that is taking place right now as we speak. And every day there are new challenges. And so that's simply what the letter is addressing. And we're asking the board to pay attention and to do so, to do it in a way where they would engage a subject matter expert in land use to draft a draft moratorium to be considered for law.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody compiled a list of land purchases in downtown Woodstock that are questionable or suspicious?
Well, Mark Plate would have that information, and we have access to that information. We are only aware of the major ones that we can see blatantly taking place, and much of this stuff is happening behind doors with lots of money being dangled in front of people that are not used to seeing that level of money. And it's frankly, people are being manipulated. And so, and these are LLCs that are doing the manipulation, not individuals, and even individuals are doing it as well. So again, to Jeff's point, this is simply a letter that the Housing Committee has written, is planning on offering it. You each can talk amongst yourselves about whether you support it collectively or individually. And we're here simply to introduce this letter to you so that you weren't blindsided. We did not want you to be blindsided by our actions. And simply we're here to provide this information to you so you're aware of our actions.
Okay, so I haven't heard from Dave. Well, I think I heard from David earlier, but I haven't really heard from David, I don't think, on this topic, or Michael or Connor. So so let me start with David. You're at the top of my screen, David. What are your thoughts about the ZRC supporting this moratorium?
I think we should. I think it's important. I mean, it fills a need for the town. So I think I support it, no question.
Okay. Michael, any thoughts? Do you support this moratorium?
I think the only.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. I'm not understanding what you're saying.
I'm sorry. I'm going to try to move, and maybe this will help. I was just trying to understand what the moratorium is.
Well, I had showed it on my screen, but you might not have seen it. So the moratorium is.
No, I see what it is, but specifically, what does the moratorium do?
It will. My understanding is it will stop. It will halt building permits being given out for large scale projects until we get some zoning revisions to the law regarding housing, so that we don't have the town being run amok by people that want to do huge projects. We want to have some time to get our zoning law revised to make sure that future huge projects follow our revised zoning law. So it would halt building permits.
It would halt building permits for huge, and a huge project is.
Well, large or huge.
Yeah, I think there's a clarification.
Yeah, Susan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's up to the town board to determine the parameters of the moratorium. Our goal is to stop the creeping commercialism of housing.
Okay.
In the hamlet, as well as in the outlying areas where multiple properties get bought and by different people under different names. And so they kind of slide in under the non-owner occupied limitation. And every year that's a new application. So, it's just a matter of trying to stop things while all of us are considering. I mean, we did it on our behalf, but also noted that you're doing your work. If you all want to weigh in for the town as to how you think it impacts you, that's your choice. But, we wanted the horse is already out of the barn and has been for 20 years, but it's heating up. It suddenly came to our attention that we're, at least a half a dozen properties being considered right now in the middle of town by a small group of people, and whose only interest would be developing something on a commercial level. But as I looked through the permits for the non-owner occupied short-term rentals that were approved this year, it was clear that there is this commercial effort going on throughout the town. And it is not up to us to know ahead of time what the limitations need to be. We just need a pause. We need to
Okay,
pause.
thank you. That's
Yep.
Yep.
I wanted to add something to that, Michael. Basically, we've done 2 years worth, not 1 year, 2 years worth of research on the need. And if you saw on that Monday, the statistics, and there's more newer statistics out that our town is having a bigger crisis than just everywhere. in terms of housing and for renters, and people are kind of really being pushed out in many ways because it's becoming a lot of commodity. We're talking about, that's what we said in the letter, LLC owner, like the non-owner occupied companies that are coming in and buying up property that used to be used for housing. It's a little more complicated, but I just want to let you know that we're talking about that we have a real crisis here, and we just want the opportunity to put a pause on that so that our two groups can meet together, do the zoning revisions, and kind of get what we need to do for the housing crisis and start working on that. It's sort of happening faster than we have a chance to do anything. You know, does that make a little sense, a little bit better?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we just need time. We need to pause. We need time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Understood. Yep.
Okay, so Michael, are you saying you're a so you're a yes, support it? Or no, not support?
Yeah, well, I would support the town board looking at whatever items they deem to be appropriate in relation to these committees, because I think these committees have done a lot of work and are putting forth good effort. So yeah, I support it.
Yeah, okay. And Connor, we haven't gotten to you yet.
Connor is having a hard time. He's been sending chats to everybody. If you look in the chats, and he's wanting us to mention that he's having a hard time.
Yeah, I see Susan's got to go. Susan, you've been wonderful at helping to explain. I know others in committee will also be wonderful to help explain. But Susan, thank you so much for all of your insights.
Thank you. I'm sorry to abandon as we get to collaboration, but I do need to go. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for being here so far, though.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So I'm going to read Connor. Oh, his connections kept keeping him from being heard. Okay, I'm just reading these. Yeah. Yeah, I was at the meeting. Yeah, I heard him say that earlier. Connections being, yeah, have to step. Yeah, okay, Susan's leaving. Yeah, I know Urena asked Connor, can you call in? So Connor, are you able to, if you can hear me now? I can hear you now. Yes, please. So are you a supporter of the moratorium letter?
I suppose so, but one thing that got a little garbled out for me, because I've been having terrible connection issues. What is the time frame we're talking about, and what kind of milestone are we looking at? Within that time frame to achieve?
We're going to present it tomorrow at the town board meeting.
Yeah, we will present tomorrow, and you know, the next step we're stating in the letter is that a subject matter expert of land use be given the opportunity to draft the moratorium. And what we've learned in our research is that moratoriums typically last no more than 9 months. Typically there are windows 6 to 9 months. It's even like gray, right? The moratorium is gray in a sense, 6 to 9 months or 3 to 6 months. So we don't know exactly what the land use expert will draft, but this is the way we are framing it. And a milestone on our side, Connor, would be that we have some aspect of the draft for not all of the revisions that'll be made in our zoning laws regarding housing, but some of the specifics associated with how the town can go forward with the means to build housing for workers and for artists and for musicians and for seniors and for first-time home buyers and for young people. So that's the housing we're talking about. The housing that's being grabbed up is not going to go to those types of people. It's only going to go to the high market rate. So we need to find a means, our town needs to find a means through which we can build the housing we need. So 2 things we're looking to accomplish. One is some law at which we can begin to socialize with our community and begin to provide some information to the community so that they can understand what the law means to our town. And that, in order for that to happen, we need this committee to write a draft and then, and be prepared to engage in a public conversation at some point. So those are if you were to put a milestone to it, those would be the 2 major milestones. But again, it's going to be framed in time. It's a time frame. It's, and that would be up to the town board to choose how much time they would allow.
Well, one of the questions is the moratorium going to, would it be, say, directed at the Hamlet Preservation District, which is where the most development I've been hearing about is occurring? Or is it townwide, or is it for subdivisions of 3 units or more, or is it for change of use? I mean, you have to be specific, but that's up to
I think all that's up to the town board. I think that the goal here is to get the town board to take an action, and the town board should take the action if they feel is appropriate. If they think it's Hamlet, it should be Hamlet. It's not, I think they've been saying they're not going to write the law for the town board. They're going to say we need something done, and let's get the people who can make it happen,
Yeah.
and involve a land use lawyer to make it be illegal, to make it work right. So those details are part of what needs to happen later, not now. So us talking about details is not particularly useful.
We're talking about whether the zoning revision committee is going to sign this call.
Actually, we're not. They're not asking us to sign it. They're letting us know what's going on.
Right.
But I,
about whether people want to sign on to this. And
that was not their question. That's not my understanding of their question. They're going to send it regardless of whether we sign on or not.
well, they will, but it's a valid, but Jeff, I believe it's a valid question. I'm sorry, but I believe it's a valid question for us as a zoning revision committee to say, do we want to formally support the moratorium letter that the housing committee send, or do we not? So I think that it's a valid question for us to make us take a stand. We can decide to not take a stand. We can decide to not make any statement at all about it, or we can decide we do want to say we want to support it. I'm sure we're not going to say we don't want to support it, but so it seems our realistic choices are either saying nothing as a zoning revision committee or say that we support it. And I'm just trying to sense, do we as a committee want to say we support it, or do we want to say nothing? Either way is okay, because you're correct. The housing committee is going to be taking this to town board, whether we say anything or not. So we have, in my view, we should make a decision. And Terry, go ahead. You're muted, Terry.
You're muted. You gotta unmute.
I'm just a guest. I don't know if I'm allowed to speak. I don't know what.
I, as the chair of this meeting, am allowing you to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to, I don't know if this is helpful, but we wrote a letter. We are the Woodstock Neighbors Committee, and we formed early on when this first happened with Waterfall Way a few years ago. And so we wrote a letter very similar to the Housing Committee letter to the town board, urging them to have a moratorium. And I have to say, in my personal opinion, because we live in the hamlet, so we're watching this happen. And we have just heard, what spurred our letter is that not only the funeral home, but across the street from us, 2 scrub acres right next door to the American Legion are just being bought up by developers, and it wasn't even on the market. So we feel that, my personal opinion is that you as a zoning revision committee need time to do this work, and that in supporting a moratorium, I think what you're saying is we agree that taking a breather so that we can look at this is important. And so I see it kind of as a 3-pronged thing. You are going to do vital work. Your committee is so vital. You're at the heart of the matter here. The housing committee is trying to create a strategy for housing that's affordable, and the community has to support looking at this in fresh light. We haven't discussed it. So really what we're asking the town board is talk about this vital issue and open it up. And not that we have specifics of how to go about this, but we just represent, there are 39 people who signed on to this letter, and we just wrote it 2 days ago. So
Well,
Right, okay.
one
Jeff,
good thing
oh,
about
sorry, go ahead, Ed.
one good thing about the Woodstock Neighbors Committee, you uh, uh, call upon the board to declare an immediate moratorium on any major building projects. That's different, slightly different than what the Housing Committee is looking to do. So I think the Zoning Revision Committee ought to send a letter to the town board supporting the principles while protecting the right of homeowners to do projects, and to limit it to major subdivisions or, like you say, major building projects, and to put a moratorium on major building projects. Well, because all of us have been involved in a lot of local issues and battles, and it will be the equivalent of nuclear war if the town board tries to prevent homeowners from building a garage.
Absolutely.
Or a house.
Yeah, or a house. It will be just like nuclear war. And I say that as a long time veteran of a lot of local issues.
But what is a major project, I guess,
Hey,
how
guys,
you
we're getting
define
off
it?
track here. I'm really getting off track. Okay, there's nothing in what we're being asked to do here that talks about stopping building of garages. So let's not get off track. The question here is, do we support the letter that is written? They're not going to change through a letter. So I'm going to just call for a vote. Do we support the letter or not? If you want to vote on it, we don't need to. It doesn't matter what we say or not. But if we want to support it, let's just call for a vote on it and move on. If you want to call for writing your own letter, then someone make a motion to write your own letter. Right now, we have one letter we can say yes or no to. If you don't like it, vote no. And we can move on, because we have a lot to do. We're 45 minutes into this meeting. Let's kind of move on.
I think, yes, it may be, but I think we should write a brief letter to the town board in the name of the Zoning Revision Committee, which calls upon the basic tenets and procedures of the letter.
That's fine. Once someone writes a draft, we can vote on it, but we're not there yet. We don't have no draft to even vote on our letter.
Well, we want to get it out right away, because we do.
Draft in 2 minutes, but
I'm not sure that I'll vote yes for a draft that gets developed in 2 minutes.
Well,
But anyway, the question is,
it's not a major writing project, but the idea is not to do it tonight, but I could consult with you. I liked your letter a lot. I could consult, your proposal, so we could come up with a draft and send it perhaps tomorrow.
so is there going to be a vote on whether or not we support the existing letter from the Housing Committee, yes or no? I just want to know if there's a vote or not.
Well, okay, and Jeff, I know, I understand the, what's the right word? Well, the word impatience comes to mind, but I do want to, I want to keep everybody calm here, though. So I like Ed's idea. I do like Ed's idea that says that we do. I would like the motion to be, do we agree? And I think it was pretty simple what Ed said is in us supporting the housing letter, I think the wording would be something to the effect, to repeat what Ed said, is the Zoning Revision Committee supports the principles of the housing moratorium letter, being sure that it does preserve the rights of homeowners to make their house upgrades. It's not going to stop any house upgrades. It's the moratorium on the larger stuff, but it's not going to halt homeowners from making their home upgrades. So if we had a letter, and I think I'm paraphrasing that, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I'm going to write down my motion. So to make sure I have it in my minutes for later, and we do right. So motion to support the housing moratorium letter, while, and I'm saying pretty much what Ed said, while protecting the rights of homeowners to And what's the right word, Ed? To update their property to, if we say enhance,
To do maintenance and upgrading of their property.
to maintain, maintain and upgrade their residential property. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Residential property. Okay, so I'm making a motion. I feel like I'm stealing it from Ed. Ed, do you want it to be your motion? I'm just repeating your words. What's that?
I'll make that motion, yeah.
Okay, so Ed, I'll second it. All in favor? I'm a
Aye.
yes.
Aye.
Was anybody on the zoning revision committee opposed?
To me, making a motion for something that I haven't seen and haven't had consideration for, I can't really vote on it, so I'm going to abstain.
Well, I just explained what's going to be in the letter. It's going to be the exact words I say. We're going to support the housing
I
moratorium
need
letter.
to see the letter. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, for me to vote for something that I haven't seen written down in words that, as Ed said, could cause nuclear war in Woodstock, I can't vote yes to.
Well, I think it won't
Until
be.
I
I
actually
think
see the letter.
Ed's clarification to say homeowners can still do their upgrades is going to avoid the nuclear war. That's why Ed wanted.
It may well be, but I have to see the letter until I vote yes or no. I mean,
Gotcha. Okay.
you know.
So I voted yes. I think Ed's.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Ed's voted yes. I voted yes. Jeff is abstained. Michael, do you vote yes to that?
Yes.
Okay, Michael is a yes. Connor, are you a yes?
Yes.
David, are you a yes?
Yeah.
And David is yes. Okay, so the motion does carry because we have our own bylaws that say four is a quorum and 4 carries a motion. So so it carried, and Jeff, I respect your abstaining. So yes, so we've accomplished one item. As Jeff points out, we spent a lot of time on it, but it was very important, and it's extremely. This is the first time. Well, this is the first time that we've had like our full committees together, and it's been a while since Kirk and Susan joined us. I think it was like not quite a year ago. I think it was maybe June, but these are important conversations to have, and we're we haven't met for a while, so there is a lot to cover. The next topic that we did want to cover was next steps and how we're working together, and my opinion is we really need a session. Now we meet the second and fourth Monday, and I know that the housing committee meets, I think, the fourth Wednesday. So you all can join us. I'm happy to join you. Although every now and then I have a conflict on the fourth Wednesday, but I think you meet at 5 though. Kirk, do you guys meet at 5 on Wednesday?
Yes.
5 on Wednesday. So if this meeting time works for you all, then this gives us three times in a month we can meet, because if but maybe it doesn't work for you all. But anyway, the next steps, I believe, as I said earlier, is for the zoning revision committee to be making the actual law changes. We need collaboration, because your team, as Urena has corrected me, for 2 years, your housing committee has worked for 2 years on investigations, understanding the needs, doing analysis. And I think that we need an information transfer of some specific things you'd like to see the zoning law accomplish. And I'm okay with the zoning revision committee being the ones that write the law, because that's what we signed up to do, be on the zoning revision committee. We signed up to revise the zoning law. I'm totally okay with that, but you're the experts, because you've been doing 2 years worth of research of what some specific needs in town are. So that being said, I would hope we could meet. I don't know whether the 22nd of March works out, or if some of us should plan to come to your meeting the 4th Wednesday. But I think the next step is you all identifying what specific things need to be updated in the zoning law, because you've done the research to know what the needs are.
But we gave that information to this committee back last summer. And so that's one thing, is that, we provided, and we can provide some list again from the, in terms of the revisions of existing zoning laws having to do with housing, and those things that are obstacles in the current zoning laws that could be made less of an obstacle for
Mhm.
the type of housing that's required. And then two, we have some innovation that we are in our research. These are laws that do not currently exist in our current zone. And those are also been provided to you as a committee. And we're expecting, what we would like to see as a committee is to let the subgroup of this committee take ownership of the drafting of the full spectrum or a prioritization of the laws in which we are necessary, and to give us a timeline that we can then respond to. And we can, be aware of that, of that timeline. And I would prefer, in my own experience, that the process be iterative in nature. That it not be, we not go dark on each other for long periods of time and then we come back with something that's written and we're having to review everything. There'll be times where we have something to review, we give our feedback, and then further. So those are the two things that we as a committee think of as ways to collaborate. And I believe Urena may have something to say more, but that's the way I'm framing it, is to, and we provided research. We provided case studies, I should say.
Well, I have that. I'm going to pull it up because you had sent, when you have, let me go pull up.
Laura, well, hold on a minute. I don't have time to go through all this. I think what we're trying to say is to have everybody come together on 3 different dates in a month is too much.
Yeah.
That's fine.
What was really helpful for us and how we work well, and I would just suggest, you're a different group of different people, is that you identify the people in subgroup that's going to work on housing in your group. We have who we've identified with, and we get together and we'll set our own dates and times and start working together on a regular basis to get this done. That's very helpful. And then the whole idea of having to get everybody together and 10 people together is a lot. And it's just not, there's just not a lot of time for that in people's lives and stuff. So to be more successful and not to have to go over this, because we have sent you documents.
I'm about to pull it up. I'm going to pull up what I have. I have a link right here and I know what I have, and I'm going to pull up what I have, and I'm going to then say, is there something else that I should have? I'm going to pull it up because I have a link, something right here. But so in any event,
going to be on that subgroup that's going to be working with us and housing.
I'm sorry. Well, our team, our committee is 6 people.
And our so you're when we do this together, you have to be at every single one of them.
Well, not everybody. I can tell you, it's rare to have all 6 people this committee on a meeting at the same time. But but the way this committee has worked things is we've had people taking the lead on things. And so somebody will take the lead, but the committee is involved in discussions. We meet twice a month. And so we'll review a different topic. So twice a month we meet and everybody on the committee reviews where we are. And there might be somebody doing homework off on the side, and then they bring what they have and they review with the committee. So that's pretty much how we did. We just have the telecommunications law. We just ran off, and Ed had the lead on that, but Ed and Dave both were working on that, and then shared it. And then we as a committee reviewed it and we went through it. And then we said, okay, now it's done. And it's been sent to Bill McKenna.
Okay. So I just need to know, because I have to go. So okay. I need to know who is on in the housing. I'm part of the subcommittee that's working on zoning. Who in your group is part of that? Because those are the people that I feel like I'm going to talk to next. And then we'll all report out to the big groups. But for now, if we just know who they are and make sure that they have the documents, and as long as you guys are reading them as we have, then when we have these discussions, it's not having to repeat everything over again. So
well, that's fine. But again, it's been a year. So you guys were June. So it was June. And I do have, and in what I have sent, what my committee has, what you didn't see in the agenda, but I would just share what I.
But who is?
I think in all fairness, I think our committee should talk about this offline. I'm just going to share what we have. So I have in my notes that we have, I've listed in the notes that just went to this committee today. The new thing is what Kirk sent me about the replay from 2 weeks ago. So that's new, but what the committee's had and what I've sent them in previous iterations of previous agendas for previous meetings, I do remind them that in an email I sent out in July of this year, it has the 3 documents that came from Kirk. Kirk sent me 3 documents. I have the YouTube link of the meeting where Kirk and Susan came to discuss these goals. So this is fresh. We just, as of the last meeting, which was actually 4 weeks ago, because 2 weeks ago, we attended that county meeting. So 4 weeks ago, we just finished the 2 things that allow us to make this top on our priority list. And now that this is the top of our priority list, we need to sort out some of the answers to your question. So you're asking, do we already know? We are just today, as a committee, having our first conversation at all on this, because as I said before, we had other priorities and they are fresh off the table. So
Okay,
this is
so
our very
again,
first conversation.
Question, Laura, you're not answering, and I can't read like
Well,
that.
And I'm not going to tell you who it all is, because we need, as a committee, you need to respect us enough to give us a chance to figure that out. Because we had other priorities, and this is our very first meeting where we are resuming our focus, and to be asking me questions when our committee has not had a chance to meet, just the 6 of us, to answer these questions is a little disrespectful. That's how I feel. I say how I feel, for better or for worse, I say how I feel.
I thought that was taken care of, but I guess not. Okay, I understand.
No, because as I said, this housing work was on hold, and I was honest and accurate when I said it was on hold. It was on hold.
Can we just move forward, guys? Can we just move forward to what Kirk has suggested, which is we get subcommittees to work together on issues and get moving forward instead of reflecting on the past? And
we are going to meet in 2 weeks. This committee will meet, and this committee will take a look at, as Kirk said, he would like us to review the information. I haven't reviewed it, what Kirk sent us 6 months ago, or rather June 6th. We need to look at it. We do need to assess. Do we feel it's detailed enough? Kirk feels it's detailed enough. I remember how I felt and my recollection of these things as we reviewed it. And there were some, there were some objectives. There weren't a lot of, I didn't view them as specifics, and we'll have to review them, Kirk, and get back to you on whether we think they're specific enough. So Kirk has said our committee should go take what we got that time ago, and we should, and we will. So we will take our next meeting and review the materials from back in June that were sent to us at that time, and we'll review that, and we will let you know how you feel about whether we feel like we have enough to proceed. So that's what I think Kirk said that we should do, is look at the information they've already given us, and now is the time that we can address that. I was accurate when I said we had other things we were doing, and now we were focused on this, and now we will do it. So, okay. Anyway, so that'll be our next step, and that'll be our next meeting, is reviewing, that'll be our homework, is reviewing those materials. So, okay. And we'll kind of take it from there. And it's not really a subgroup, Urena. It's really that we operate the way we operate, and we've operated as a full team, and our full team is looking at housing now. And in our next meeting, we will figure out more details about how we're going to look at housing. So, okay. The next topic we had was Jeff had sent his document on the zoning. Whoop, let me come back to it. And let me go share my screen again. And this I sent to the committee, but Jeff had just sent it not too long before the hour this meeting started. So I did send it to everybody, and you may be able to read it better if you look at what I sent you, because the writing could be small. But Jeff, you would want to be on the agenda to address this.
Yeah, so one thing that I've been doing since our last meeting was I've been talking with members of the housing committee about the idea of a community, sustainable community housing, or Woodstock community housing floating zone. The idea of floating zones is something that came up at our meeting last time. I explored it with Kirk, I explored it with Susan Goldman. And I think there's an area of common belief that it's a avenue to help improve the housing situation in Woodstock. I would like to start moving on this and start looking at how we can move forward with this particular idea. There are 2 communities in the area that do this, Rhinebeck and what's the second one? I believe it's, I forget the other town. I have copies of their zoning floating law. I think there's issues with that, but I think that what I want to suggest as a process is that members of the housing committee and members of the zoning committee work together on this particular idea. And I'm talking about very frequent, common back and forth discussions where we kind of flesh out what we think we want to do with this floating zone, brainstorming, basically brainstorming sessions, and get those together. That'd be the first step once we come up with a set of criteria. So again, a floating zone, for those who don't know what a floating zone is, the floating zone is a zone that isn't specifically laid out in an area. Certain criteria are set for the floating zone to be able to be used. Once those criteria are met, that floating zone can be laid down on top of other zones. Okay, the idea of the floating zone for sustainable community housing is that it be sustainable in the sense of sustaining the community to allow the community to continue to exist and prosper and grow. And also the housing itself would be sustainably built. That's why I like the word sustainable in it. The community part of it is that it's about building community within Woodstock and allowing the community to continue to grow. And housing, of course, is it means it's a residential project, not a commercial project. Then the process I'd like to go through is a brainstorming session with members of the housing committee who've thought about this already, and have some background in this, in the zoning committee, put ideas on paper of what the criteria would be that would qualify for a floating zone, and make sure we understand and agree with those criteria. Once we've done that, take it to the committee at large, meaning the town, say this is what we're thinking of doing to our zoning law. What are your thoughts? Making sure that we get buy-in from the community at large before we put it on the books. Once that's done, we take it to a lawyer, someone that can actually write the zoning code to be specifically what we want to do, make sure it's legal, make sure it's appropriate. Once all that gets done, we take it to the town board to get them to pass it. Obviously, the town board would be involved in the process throughout, so it's not just blind to them. But I think that process of taking a specific possibility, brainstorming it with people that know about it, looking at other towns, what they've done it, we can move a little bit faster. And I'm encouraged about this particular idea. I think it could apply to a lot of areas of Woodstock and actually bring us some relief from the housing crisis. So I just want to get people's thoughts on that and see if we want to take this, take my suggested process and move forward with it.
Yeah, well, honestly, every now and then you froze up a little bit. So I heard like 80% of what you said, but I think I didn't hear 20%. So if I missed something, sorry, but I don't know whether it was you freezing up or me freezing up. Anyway, Kirk, you had something you want to say.
I just would like to request that whatever documents that this committee has pertaining to housing, that you share those documents with us so we have an opportunity to review them and provide our input and push, and reflect, so that you could further evolve your thinking based on our responses. So please, if that's something that your committee would be willing to do, is to share as when it's appropriate, when you feel it's appropriate, to share with me and Susan, then we will then share with the whole committee.
Yeah.
Or the people that are involved in the subgroup within our committee on this matter.
Right. Okay. So this document is something that Jeff had just shared a couple of hours ago. He just emailed it to me a couple of hours ago. So it is pretty much hot off the press. Other documents we really got from you, but if you want me to kind of send to you the documents that we're working on, even though we got them from you, at least you'll know what we're working on. So if we're missing something, you can tell us. So if you would like me to send you,
I just can't
everything.
comprehend this. Like,
Excuse me?
looking at it, I can't. I need to sort of take my time and read something, and then be prepared for having the discussion about it or listening.
Right. So I can definitely send this document out.
And things like that. I just didn't know what's going on. listening.
that-
I can't hear. I don't know. It's hard to.
Yeah. That's fine. No, but definitely. So Jeff's idea was we start out with a brainstorming session. I can definitely send this document to Kirk and Susan to forward to the whole housing committee. I like Jeff's idea. Yeah, and I know that I've heard about the floating zone before, really from Kirk and the housing committee, and it sounds like a perfect idea. And so I thank you, Jeff, for putting together some information on it. I'll be happy to send this document to Kirk. And as Jeff said, is the first step of the process would be brainstorming about the floating zone, and of the things in housing that we focus on, this could be a first, one of the first things. Well, I think we'll have a number of first things we want to focus on, especially given if we do the moratorium, we do have to figure out which tasks we have to address that are urgent because the moratorium will run out in 9 months. Which things do we have to do right away, excuse me, to make sure we make them law before the moratorium runs out. So we'll want to spend a little time of prioritizing the housing things we want to address. We want to prioritize those things. I'm certainly fine with this being one of the things that we do, but we should give thought to what specific things do we need to make sure we address, to make sure that, again, when the moratorium runs out, we want to make sure anything that was critical that that helps us halt that commercialization that we want to halt, we want to make sure we make those zoning changes as a priority. So we will want to prioritize, and people feel like this floating zone is part of that priority. I'm fine with that. And I like Jeff's idea of brainstorming being the first step of members of both of our committees being part of a session. And my point before about, hey, we have 3 meetings that we can join yours or you can join ours, is not that we're all going to meet at all those 3 meetings. My point was we clearly have opportunities that we could have collaborative sessions if we chose, because we got 2 meetings a month, you got 1 meeting a month. And if we choose a collaborative session, we have choices of when to hold it. That was my thought from before, not that we're all going to be at every meeting. But anyway, so Jeff, I mean, I kind of think I would kind of like our zoning revision committee to have a chance. We like to keep our meetings to an hour. We've been in an hour and 15 minutes now. I would like for our zoning revision committee just to take our time at our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks, and just absorb a lot of stuff, do some homework. I'll resend what everybody should be looking at to be prepared for that conversation. The things that that Kirk said that he gave us back in June, which he did, but I'll resend those things that we should all be looking at. And I do think that we ought to be having our own zoning revision committee discussion in our regularly scheduled meeting in 2 weeks, and then figure out our next steps based on what we've already heard from the housing committee, even though it was back in June, but we can refresh ourselves on that. And based on the floating zone idea of Jeff. And I think we should set some tasks and then set some priorities for those tasks. So that's what I would look for us to do in 2 weeks. So that would be my thought, is we need to kind of have a big picture and a plan of short-term and long-term plan of direction as a committee, I think.
I think I just want to emphasize the fact that this is a critical need in our town now. And even waiting 2 weeks to decide what we're going to decide, what we're going to talk about, seems like a long time to me. So that's my take on it. It's like, for us to spend 2 weeks and not do anything other than maybe read something that we got back in June of last year, and then come back in 2 weeks and say, well, now let's talk about what we might actually talk about. Seems like we won't get done within my lifetime.
Well, it will.
I'm exaggerating and I'm frustrated with the timeliness of it, but that's my point of view.
Jeff, I can tell you I'm available in 1 week. If our zoning revision committee is available in 1 week, we can meet in 1 week. If our committee feels like I'm a consensus manager, and as a consensus manager, I read what people of the people I'm leading, and believe it or not, I have a lot of years of leadership experience. You may or may not believe that, but it's actually a fact. Not to mention, as people have heard me say a million times, some people, I am a certified professional project manager. That is my job title. It's what I do in my day job. And I lead people all the time. And so I do like to know what the people I'm leading are interested in doing and how they want to approach it. We do need to do some homework. If people do listen to the conversation when Kirk and Susan presented to us before, they're going to listen to like an hour-long YouTube conversation. Yeah, there's some documents to look at. So there is some homework here. So it's not like people are going to do nothing. And I also am not a knee-jerk person. And I understand we want to get going on this. People did attend the session 2 weeks ago to really get a good base. We can look at what we're doing. And I clearly believe that instead of being knee-jerk and let's just go run this way, I think that we ought to take some time to figure out what the big picture is and take some time to make sure we are addressing the top priority things first. So
Can I jump in here? For
yes,
a second?
please do, Connor. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm just gonna put it out there that I thought I was and I will be on the housing subcommittee for our group. So if having that information out there helps you guys deliver on anything you want us to be familiar with for our next meeting, that's fine. Jeff, I think, your proposal should, I totally agree with it, and I feel like it should fall under what I would say a more urgent category of investigation warrants, and I'm happy to help with that as well. But for tonight, do you think we can say by next week we should be read up on everything we want to have us be familiar with? I mean, not next week, I'm sorry, by our next meeting.
So Jeff was saying he thought 2 weeks was a long time to wait. I'm offering myself in a week. If the zoning revision committee would like to, instead of meeting in 2 weeks, if we want to meet in 1 week, I'm available. And if the committee, if our committee members feel like you kind of brushed up on those things we need to brush up on in a week, if we want to meet in a week, I'm happy to do it. Jeff's raised a good point that 2 weeks in a way is a long time because this is very urgent stuff. I fully agree. I'll make myself available in a week if our zoning revision committee wants to meet in a week. If we feel like we really want to take 2 weeks to refresh ourselves and come to that meeting with ideas of tasks and priorities so that we can hit the ground running in that meeting to figure out the answers to these questions. What are our tasks we need to do? What are our priorities? What are we going to work on first? I'm happy to, I'm happy to meet in a week if people want to. I'm happy to meet in 2 weeks if people want to. Our committee has homework to do before that meeting and should come with ideas of, as we figure out what our task list is and then prioritize so we can hit the ground running.
Yeah, sure. Jeff, I'm sorry. I feel like I've gotten sidetracked a little bit. What do you feel like we can accomplish tonight to get where you want us to be?
I guess what my thought is that there should be a difference between a working session and hopefully this is getting internet here 1 second, is that we should have a difference between working sessions and these full-on sessions where we do votes and decide, and do the more, I don't know what the word is, but to me, we need more frequent informal working sessions.
That's what I was trying to say before.
To get through all the stuff that's there. We can't do an hour every 2 weeks and get through this work we got to get done. That's just impossible.
So maybe what we can do tonight then is decide on that subcommittee. Would you be open to that, Laura? Because I'm sure Jeff is interested in being on it. Sure,
well,
I'm interested.
I've been to, because I've been to several, at least one, I think 2 housing meetings. So I would consider myself to be on it. Yeah, and that's fine. But again, if we wanted to meet in a week, I'm happy to meet in a week. And if the 3 of us wanted to have a working session, or Jeff, are you offering yourself as that working session?
Yes, I am, absolutely. I mean, okay. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I put the paper out for. That's what I want to get this done. I think it's really important. I think there's some great ideas that we need to explore and get this happening.
Okay, so
and I think that if we can have some working sessions, then we can make that happen quicker.
Right. So, and I threw out, can people meet in a week? Can
I
people
can't.
meet?
We need the Rhinebeck movable district legislation, for instance.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, as we've been meeting, because we've been meeting for quite a while, I mean, some of our meetings have been working sessions and some of our meetings have been voting sessions. So it's kind of how we've evolved. I mean, some committees meet, like housing meets once a month, but then they have subgroups meet other times. We've been meeting twice a month, and some of our meetings have been working sessions, and we have gotten things done. So having some working sessions and some voting sessions. So, but in any event, I'm happy to have a working session. I know Ed said he cannot make it. We can all grab our calendars and find a time that we can all make it, if that's what people want to do. Ed, what is your availability in general? Are you?
Always available. I'm a writing machine. I start writing in the morning and I write till midnight.
Right.
So
Okay.
I'm here in my house.
It's a what in your house?
I'm right here in my house on the road for the last year.
Yep. You work from home. Yeah, there you go. So, but you say this coming Monday does not work for you.
No, I didn't say anything. Monday's fine.
Oh, you said Monday's fine. So, Dave, would you be able to meet in a week?
I suppose so.
You suppose so. And we have Michael.
What's the topic in the meet? What's the purpose of the meeting in a week?
It'll be a working session to
What's the agenda going to be?
What's that? The agenda is going
to be?
The agenda is going to be, we're going to get a head start on, people will need to have read the documents that Kirk shared when he and Susan came to join us back in June. And we are going to take a look at the list of what it is. We're going to agree on a list of what are our tasks for the housing zoning revisions. And then we are going to prioritize, and then different people will take pieces of that. And part of that will be the zoning, because I think we all agree that's going to be hot on the list. But my sense is that we should not ignore other things as we do that. My sense is we need to have that in context with other urgent things. My belief is the zoning, this floating zone will not be the only urgent thing. And we should have an idea of all the urgent things so that we can make sure they're all addressed and nothing falls through the cracks. So that will be a working session to discuss what our, to agree on our most urgent things to do. We might not have a full to-do list, but we need to agree on what our most urgent things to do are. So we should do the homework, look at some of what Kirk has sent us in the past, and assess what our most urgent things are and assign people. So that would be the agenda.
Okay, in preparation for that meeting, can we have someone create a list of all of the things that we could work on, just so that we come prepared and can come with something to actually go through instead of having.
That is what Kirk has already sent us. I'm going to resend it.
No, we have, I don't mean that. I mean the digestion of that, so that we have a list of whatever number of things it is. And we can say, these are the list of the 12 things, whatever the number is, of things that we could work on. Let's have an open discussion about what's going on. Just, I want to be able to focus on the question at large.
Jeff, we're going to build that list. We're going to take we're all going to read the information that Kirk sent us in June, and I'll resend it so everybody has it fresh. We're going to take a look at what Kirk, because I asked Kirk before, can you send us the specifics of what you want us to do? And Kirk said, I already sent it to you. So I'm going to take what Kirk already sent, that I've already sent to our committee, and I will resend it so you have it fresh. And we will develop that list. It's a working session. What we're going to have in a week is a working session, and it will be to develop the list of things we want to do. And it will be then to prioritize the things we want to do and assign who's going to do what. And then that is what we will leave the working session with, is what are our.
So you wouldn't object if I created a draft list that I submitted for the list for the meeting, so that something that's already digested instead of digesting it at the meeting?
We all have homework to do to refresh ourselves on what.
I understand that, Laura, I really do. But what I'm saying is, at the meeting, instead of us going through the large number of documents Kirk sent us, I think I'd like to focus on having someone digest that and say, these are the things that came out of that documentation in, simple one sentence things, and say, these are the 12 things or 10 things. whatever it is, which one of those things do we think are most important? Is that something that we'd be willing to go through? And I'm willing to create that list between now and Monday.
If you would like to do that, but everybody still needs to be doing the review. And I don't believe it's a lot of large documents. When Kirk and Susan came to our meeting back in June, they really presented one document. So it's really two things. It's really the one document that they presented. And then it is also the YouTube, if you wanted to listen to that, the YouTube that was captured of that meeting. So that's pretty, I think I have.
I understand. I understand what the material is. I'm just saying that, yeah.
Go ahead, Kirk.
Well, I think that there's probably one more document that we have gathered since we met with the Zoning Revisions Committee last summer. And that document is the one that Ed Sanders just referred to. And that is the law that the town of Rhinebeck has adopted. And they refer to it as a floating zone law.
Mm-hmm.
And so that document we have, and it's actually two documents. That document is available for us to send over for people to read and stuff.
Okay.
And I think that there probably would be one other thing that we could possibly provide, and that would be maybe Bob Young. We could, and Urena, we could create a list of the specifics that are within that document that we gave you last summer that would help this committee sort of, it's sort of like the Cliff Notes, if you will,
right,
of what it is that we understand, we as a housing committee. Again, this is not our subject matter expertise, but this is based on our research. So that list we can provide as well. And that would maybe help the committee, your committee, work on within their work session. So we can.
Okay. So you're going to send. Okay. So you're sending me two documents. One is the floating zone law from Rhinebeck, and one is the document Bob has with some additional specifics about some of the zoning changes that you think are necessary.
Yeah, existing laws, existing zoning laws, and such that may need to be addressed. And Bob, did you want to add anything to that?
No, it's just general guidelines is what we provided. That would be something that you could read and decide for yourself what is cogent, what isn't, and be able to have input on that. They're very broad. They're not particularly specific, but they'll give you a road to follow.
Right. Okay.
We can provide that back to you so that all members of this committee can then reference it. And when you meet together, however many times or however many people, that you'll have those documents. So it's a more. So we'll send that over to you. Okay. Good.
Okay. So Kirk, will you send me both? Even though one's coming from Bob, will you send me both of them?
Yes. He's got them. Kirk's got them.
Oh. Okay. So Kirk, you'll send it as soon as you send it to me. I'll send it out to the committee.
I will. Yeah.
Okay. So we've agreed our next meeting. And Ashley's still there, right? Hi, Ashley.
I don't know if Ashley's there.
Well, Town of Woodstock is Ashley. She goes on mute, and I think she lives her life a little bit, but she has us. But if she hears her name, she usually comes back. Ashley, are you there?
Is she a member of the committee?
Well, she's the Zoom hostess. She's our Zoom hostess.
There she is.
There's Ashley. So Ashley, I just want to make sure you're aware that we've agreed to have a meeting. We're inserting a meeting. We're having a meeting on the 15th. So 3/15/21 at 6:30. We're going to have our next zoning revision committee meeting, and we're very likely to still keep our meeting on the 22nd. So we are inserting a meeting so we can have a working session to jump right on the housing. So Ashley, I just want to make sure that you're aware that we're going to need you in a week at 6:30.
Okay, March 15th at 6:30.
Correct.
Okay, I'll put it in.
So, okay. Thank you very much for that.
No, I finally put Ashley together. Hello, Ashley.
Hi.
You put it, she's pretty well put together all by herself, but I'm
No,
glad you
just
put
in
it.
my mind. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. In my mind, I put the two together. Who Ashley is? Thank you, Ashley.
Ashley is wonderful. Ashley is the I don't know whether you use the town Zoom, but we use the town Zoom, and so Ashley is always with us, and we thank Ashley greatly. So okay, so we didn't actually. I think we know of our next steps here. I think that we didn't actually approve our agenda. We've lived it, but we do have to do our administrative stuff, and then we can get out of here. I do want to. I will share my screen once again for, and this is for zoning revision committee people. So our agenda, we've covered all the housing stuff. We covered all of that stuff. I did want to give the quick update on the telecommunications law next steps. And so I did send it to Supervisor McKenna today. And then we're expecting, so I've asked him, does he feel it's ready to send it to the town board? So, and I sent it to everybody on the zoning revision committee. So everybody has what I did not, except for adding 2 words, which I put in blue, I did not change any words that Ed sent me, although I did reformat things because Bill did say make it look like the Phil law, and I made it look like the Phil law. So it's reformatted, but the words are the same as what Ed sent me. So that's there. And in any event, you all have a copy of exactly what I sent to Bill McKenna. And then here's the rest of the steps. So we'll be following that as it goes through its steps. With that, I did send the minutes that I don't know whether people had a chance to look at them while we're on the call here. But we can approve the minutes at a subsequent call if we want. But do I have anybody make a motion to adopt the agenda?
Sure, I'll make the motion.
Yay, David. And what's that?
Second.
I heard David make the motion. Did I, Connor, was that you?
Yes.
Yay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Yep, I saw some hands up. Okay, yay. Do you want to approve the minutes now, or would you rather do that at a subsequent meeting because you maybe haven't had a chance to really look at them? I can pull them up on the screen. You can look at them. It's 2 pages though worth of writing. So I can pull them up, or
let's do it later. Let's do it at the next meeting.
Okay, we're doing the minutes later. Do we want to have any more? And I thank everybody for your passion. Clearly, this is a hot topic. Clearly, and the fact we had so many people on this call, and we had a lot of passionate conversation. And I definitely appreciate everybody's passion for this topic. I think it's great that we're on it. I know it. I was accurate when I said several months ago, we have 2 things we're doing first. We'll get to this when we're done with those. And we are jumping on this as soon as we are done with those. And now this is our top priority. And I think that's great. It's a hot topic. And I thank everybody for your passion for it. Any other conversation anybody wants to have on this call?
No.
Okay, we are meeting next in a week. Thank you, everybody.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I heard Connor.
Second.
Yay. I heard Connor. I think that was Ed. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. And 8:06. A lot of conversation, a lot to do. This is going to be a big topic. Extremely important, and a lot. There's going to be a lot here. So, and Jeff, thank you for offering to bring. I guess we call it a straw man when we meet in a week. So we're meeting next in a week at 6:30. And Jeff, thank you for offering to bring a straw man of information for us to help our discussion. That's going to be very helpful.
Sounds good. Definitely, I think it will help. Thank you.
It will. And thank you for offering.
Don't forget to send me a copy of the aquifer law when you forward it to Bill.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, you got it.
Thanks for having us tonight, everyone. I appreciate it.
Hey, Kirk, thank you. Hey, you showed stamina. Your committee dropped off one by one. Kirk has the stamina. So, all righty, and we'll have to figure out, Kirk, when to connect back up again.
Okay.
So we're going to do some focus and to get some things figured out, and then we'll have to figure out when we connect back up again.
Okay.
So-
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody.